Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Dallas ISD Bond 2020 Community Design Listening Session for the Replacement School for George Peabody Elementary School. We're happy to have you join us today, and we look forward to hearing your thoughts and your comments, your suggestions regarding this new campus. We are here to hear from you and want to hear your thoughts. I must pause now to allow our interpreter to give instructions in Spanish on how people can join us in Espanol.
Thank you, Ms. Bell. Buenas tardes. En unos momentos vamos a empezar a interpretar el español. Si usted desea escuchar esta presentación en español, por favor seleccione la opción en español en la parte derecha inferior de la pantalla, que es el icono del mundo. Si por algún motivo no escucha al intérprete, regresa al inglés y vuelva a intentar la opción en español. Si aún no funciona, a favor de avisarnos por el chat. También puede participar a través de la plataforma de Facebook en Dallas ISD en español. Y desafortunadamente la opción de interpretación no es compatible con computadoras Chromebook. Le recomendamos que intente entrar a la reunión utilizando un teléfono celular, iPhone o Android, una computadora o iPad o una tableta para escuchar la reunión en español. Eso es todo y que disfruten la reunión. All right, I'm ready, Ms. Bell. You can send me the request.
Thank you so much, Mr. Cruz. Again, thank you. We're here to listen to the design presentation for the community's input on the design of the replacement school for George Peabody Elementary School. We have people joining us, the community joining us in different ways tonight. So if you're joining us as a part of the Zoom call, you can share your input when asked upon by using the reactions button to raise your hand. And we will, of course, recognize you can go off mute and make your comments then, or you can share them directly in the chat room and we will get those shared and answered. If you're joining us on Facebook Live, we encourage your participation as well. And you can simply submit your questions, comments, and concerns as comments on the Facebook post. We will get those shared and answered as well. So we look forward to a wonderful presentation and great input. So without any further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce the principal of this amazing campus, Ms. Sherry Rogers Hall. Go ahead, Principal.
Hi, thank you, Ms. Bell. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Welcome. I am elated that you've taken an interest in coming to hear about what our new school is going to be like. We've had some great memories in our current building, but we're looking forward to making new memories in our new building. And so I am super duper excited to hear what the architects have to share. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Principal Hall. And this would not be possible without amazing support from our Board of Trustees. And tonight, we're so pleased to have the trustee for this school and this district join us tonight. Trustee Mackey, Board President Mackey, if you would like to have opening remarks this time, it's your time to do so.
Good evening, everyone. I am so glad to be here. I am excited for this much needed new school that we're going to be getting for George Peabody Elementary School. I want to thank Principal Rogers Hall for being here, all the community members, and look forward to working alongside of everyone here to ensure that the students of Peabody Elementary School get the absolute most beautiful school that they deserve to be able to learn in. Excited to see what we have here and look forward to continuing to work with everyone in this process. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us this evening, Trustee Mackey, and also for all the work you do on behalf of the students and their families in Dallas ISD. Tonight's meeting is made possible because of the Bond 2020 program, and heading that program is Deputy Chief Brent Alfred. Mr. Alfred will now come at this time and give a background on this project and on the bond itself.
Yeah, thank you for that introduction, Jackie. As she mentioned, I'm Brent Alfred. I'm the Deputy Chief of Construction Services, and I'm proud to be here in front of the Peabody community to present this concept these architects have come up with. This is our second meeting, and this is just a journey. Our journey is just beginning. We're gonna be in a 12-month process of design. There will be a bidding period and about another 14 to 16 months of construction. So we're excited that you're on this journey with us. And, you guys know, with your support, you approved a $3.5 billion bond program, which is historic. This is the largest in the history of Texas. And you are one of 14 replacement schools, which I consider kind of our crown jewels for the bond program. You know, we're getting this out front to get you guys excited. I'm excited. Our architecture team and our program manager, AECOM, is excited. We're going to impact a lot of lives. In our last meeting, we talked about 3 big ideas, and that's going to be a theme we're going to carry throughout the life cycle of this project. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Terry with Pfluger to take you through this design charrette. Terry?
Thank you, Mr. Alfred. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be back with you tonight. We think we've got some exciting concepts for you to consider. We're going to be doing something a little unique in that we're going to show you 2 options, because there are certain opportunities one design has over the other. And so we're not only going to seek input for our overall design, but also of what your preferences might be on one option or the other. And so one of the ways that we want to engage you in this process is similar to last time. If you would like to respond, first of all, we welcome a open dialogue, a voice dialogue between us. We think that'll make this a very rich conversation. But if you feel led to send comments, questions through a contact we have here using Vivox, if you'll go and just take a picture, if you will, of that QR code, let it send you to the app, and then you can engage both digitally as well as audibly in the conversation. And so as we do that, we're going to give you a moment to get connected in that way. And so tonight, I will be giving part of the presentation. Also joining me here at the table is Alex Zulis.
Hello, everyone.
Alex Zulis is our senior project architect on the project. And then also you've got Christian Owens. He's our director of design. And let's be honest, he'll be doing a lot of the heavy lifting tonight, but together we'll present something pretty nice to you. So just to get everyone kind of acclimated, if you are going to try to use the QR code, is we're going to, let's see if we can get a question over to you here. We want you to answer this question. Please introduce yourself. I am a neighbor, alumni, Dallas ISD staff, student, or parent of George Peabody Elementary School. If you could respond to that, we would appreciate you getting to do that. All right. All right, we're going to wait. We've got, see if we get any responses coming in. Now we got one person going to be coming. So, all right. So we got one person who's connected. I'm going to, for the sake, I'm going to let others continue to do that. But for the sake of time, we're going to go ahead and move forward. I got a couple people join, and let's just see what we've got. Say again. All right. All right. So we've got some response from DISD staff and from a parent. So thank you for those that are that have entered. And so let's proceed on. Tonight we're going to talk about 3 things. First, we're going to review the guiding principles that we talked about during the first charrette. So what we did is we took your information and came up with a set of guiding principles that we really feel is important to guide every decision that's made in the design. And then second, we'll show the design, and what we want you to do is to be thinking about those guiding principles after we review them, and to see how well those are achieved in the design, because we're going to be asking for your feedback and want you to be taking note of that. And then finally, once this is done, is this our last time together? Is there another opportunity? So we'll be talking about the next steps after that. So with that, let's get underway. So our guiding principles. So the first one we just titled Home. It's all about home. That the new George Peabody Elementary School shall be family-centric. It needs to feel like home, one that is safe, relaxed, and comfortable. The design will aim to create an environment that is both welcoming and inviting, where students and staff are excited to come to school because this is where the needs are met, relationships are built, and connections are made. All right, so the idea of home. Second thing is we titled Spark, because this is the opportunity where the spaces can spark students' imagination with uplifting colors, with opportunities to dream. I think that's for students, for staff, for everyone to dream and to set goals. The building is to be designed as a teaching tool, supporting educators as moderators to learning, where students have the freedom to make discoveries, explore, and create. And that exploration is not only inside, but outside the school. And the third is about engage. By engaging the community, the school desires to instill a strong sense of intergenerational collaboration. The design will allow the community to contribute to student learning and provide opportunities for the building to give back to the neighborhood. Spaces shall carry the sense of community throughout the school, creating opportunities for student collaboration that extends across all grade levels. And then finally, connect. The building shall connect humans to nature by creating an abundance of views to the outdoors, natural daylight, and blurring the threshold of interior and exterior environments. Educational environments without boundaries look to excite students and put learning on display. So those are the guiding principles, just taking your words, organizing those together, and then using that to drive our design response. So with that, let's get started and let's start talking about our design. Alex?
So as a new endeavor, looking at the opportunities and challenges, we start looking into what is inspiring us, what is giving us some answers and some guidance. Hit the next one, Terry. And so the first thing that we like to discover is the neighborhood and understand how rich and diverse is this neighborhood, Oak Cliff. And so what it offers to us. And so it's a very well-established neighborhood with a lot of culture and a lot of natural environment. So Oak Cliff, the name says it all, right? It's about the trees, it's about the oak trees. And so we like what Mark Van Doren said, it's an American poet, teaching is really an act of discovery. And so we are taking those steps of discovering what's behind our site as an initial step. And so this is starts to identify where the school sits in relationship to the larger neighborhood. And so we see the major arteries are West Jefferson Boulevard running east-west, and then Southwest Moreland Road, north-south. Here we start looking more at a granular level, how the adjacent streets define the school block. And so on the north side, we have Ouida Street. On the south side, we have Raydale. And then west and east are Schooldale and Barnett. And so the streets surrounding the school block are rather small, particularly the one on the north side. And so that's giving us some challenges, some opportunities. On this slide, we show just some vignettes so you can get a sense of how the school looks, how the surroundings are. And so we see kind of the northwest corner will offer views towards Jefferson Boulevard, and so ability to capture some nature views to there. And we also see how close, how narrow some of the streets are, particularly the one on the north side. So let's keep that in mind as we go through the design options. And then, like I said, the better views on this side are towards the west. It'll be able to capture quite a bit of trees on that side. And so we see here the picture on the top of the page showing how those views really open up and they're expansive. And then it's, like I said, it's a very well-established neighborhood. It has, mature trees, and we're gonna try to preserve as much as we can. And if we're not, we'll replace them in kind. And then, try to preserve any important historic pieces that live on site. And we know there's a sign from a previous school, from the original school, that we'll certainly take and use in the new facilities.
And I think these views that you mentioned, while the school will be able to nestle into the neighborhood, there's great opportunities for prominence of that school to kind of introduce that arrival into that community that I think will be nice, and provide nice views outside that really brings that outside in that we had to begin to describe earlier, begin to bring that larger context of the neighborhood into the school.
And then here, just starting to make sense, really what's the practical building area. We know it's a small site, just 3 acres, occupied site. And we know it's an urban site, so there's proximity to the adjacent houses is tight. And also there's a series of setbacks that are limiting kind of where the new building needs to be.
And those setbacks are intended to help those homeowners that the building doesn't project out too much to the houses that are neighboring and provide such a large scale that it becomes kind of imposing, if you will.
And again, just understanding of the topography of the site. There's a drop on the west side of the site, which is fairly prominent. And so that's a challenge, like Terry said. That's also an opportunity because it will allow us to raise the building and kind of capture views, and also make the building very, very prominent and inviting from looking up.
Oh, and one thing, if we could, as we go through this, Christian's going to walk through these 2 options. And as we go through, be aware of those images that you might strongly associate with, and those that you might go, I'm just not feeling that, right? So either one of those, capture those so that when we have our dialogue in a moment, we can share those out and talk about those. So Christian, if you don't mind.
Sure. No, as Alex was describing the contextual aspects, I mean, there's a lot of rich things that we want to take, whether that's from the neighborhood or its natural qualities. But the exciting part, we want to show you 2 options, and they respond differently, whether that's to the views or to the site, whatever those are. But let's get to it. We're excited to demonstrate these for you, Terry. So we named each one of these concepts around your guiding principles, the quality of a home. And so this first option is just something we've called Hearth. It's, the gathering point for families and neighbors and friends. And so, our hope is that you start to see some of those qualities in the organization. I'm going to start high level because of some of the constraints that we addressed in the site analysis. The first goal to communicate is that we plan on having kids in seats active during the school year while we're constructing this new Peabody. And so I think we've achieved that in both these options. And so we're excited to share that. So you're not having to displace kids elsewhere. We're able to house those kids right there, and they're able to continue to learn. And so all that being said, this will be somewhat of a phased approach in both these schemes.
And I think, and it'll be important to know, while there'll be some space that has to be given up during that time of construction. So there's going to be kind of some give and take in that process. At the end of the day, that this will allow that to avoid that displacement, provide something really great that could happen that otherwise that wouldn't be possible otherwise without doing a phased approach.
Yep. So these series of graphics that I'm going to show you will show you kind of the sequencing of how that's going to happen. The red that are shown here are your portables and the gym that's in back.
Recording in progress.
So that would go away, and then this would serve for the phase one. And so what's in that phase one? This will house all the classrooms, your play gym, your library, and your administration. And so once this is built, all the students that are over here housed in your existing classrooms will be moved over into this new facility. And so once that happens, then we're demoing the existing Peabody, and that's when you'll get a new connector for your phase two, which will house your cafeteria and your gym and some of your special programs, art and your music. And so for the most part, you're getting all of your academics and your library and your gym all within that phase one. So really, this is going to be a sequence of construction, getting all the kids moved in, and then you're coming back and building your cafeteria and your gym and those art and music along
and
there.
The good thing it's going to be is because of the scale of the building. Right now, the plan is that that's going to be approximately 550 students. That's more kids than you have today. So that's going to offer some freedom for you to be able to have those to address your dining needs if need be. So it gives your principal some options on how to take care of those meals each day until that cafeteria gets built.
So just in terms of the massing, this is a two-story building. We noticed in the last diagram, we had two-story academics. This starts to speak to spatial adjacencies where things are at. So you can see here, we are adding a new parking off Radel right there, almost not too far from where your existing drop off and your front door is now. Designing schools is almost like designing airports. You have to think about that traffic flow. So the traffic analysis that Alex presented showed stacking on the back of the schools. So this allows for plenty of stacking, not too different than what you have now, but we do have on-site parking for staff members. And so what the red arrow is showing here is that's your front door. That's where people would park and enter. That's your front door for your home. And then you've got academics nestled around there. The different aspect about this solution versus the one we're going to show you, there is a front yard. You're going to see connection of these programs, music and art and the cafeteria, even the library where it's located, heavily connected with nature. This is, again, resembling kind of a front yard of your home. This is where all the kids would play. And so really, tying into that. And we've got some examples on what that might look like. So it's transparency. It's eroding walls to where you can do art outside. And the beauty about this is that really the library is the heart. It is that hearth of this building. It's nestled right in between the academics. So that's where you'll have your community engagement. That's where all your students are kind of formed there, but just creating some excitement around the library, because typically libraries are destinations. They're off on the side or edge of a school. We're putting it right in the middle of this school to just create some synergies around learning. So you have that from second and first level. So these next series are just images that can start to help shape what that massing looks like. Very, soft in terms of the landscape, overhangs that might start to allude to a home. Even this view to the right, it's compressed, so it feels very much, there's a comfort level to that, just even in the materiality of what we're showing. So just to give you a little bit better understanding of the organization of the plan, again, this is high level. Your red block is your administration. That's your entry point. It's a singular entry point. So you will have a secured vestibule there. You can see here, the library is the heart. It is the center. It is that living room aspect for the whole school. And so the organization of the academics are circled around that. So they're connected to the library pretty heavily. And then you go up into the green, that's your play and gym. That's in phase one because that's also going to serve as your storm shelter. So quick access right there for all the kids. And then as you can see, as you go down the slope of the site, you have art and music. This is all in phase two. And then your dining. When we talked about those views looking out towards those trees, and you all know this, is that you're looking down. I mean, there's some beautiful connections off of this site. And so we really see that dining, that gathering spot for your community and your kids to have access to that and to bring and capture that beauty that is around the site that offers. So we see a strong connection within that space. Something that's a little different is the stage is typically about performance inbound. We think there's opportunity to create performance into the front yard too. That stage can serve multi-purpose to where it can feed into the dining for presentations or school performances, or informal to where you can have that stage pronounce out into that front yard. One thing that we also have in this is there's an outdoor learning to the east, and that's connected to all your academic houses off these collaboration areas in that dark blue, and it's connected from the library as well. So quick access to that. And also, we're not calling it out in the front, but I think the front of this also is an extension of the outdoor learning environment as well.
So one of the things, if you think about your drive down Owita, is that existing building is pretty much in line where this existing building is, maybe even a little closer to the road, but that generally from about here to here is that existing facade. So we are kind of replicating the feel of a facade along there. So it'll feel similar to what you approach now. However, if you can think about it, currently there's dumpsters, and that kind of entrance service yard is here. We're moving that down. We're actually providing an entrance here and then shielding the dock and dumpsters back behind, screen wall and landscaping to soften that, so that for those, as you drive down, or the neighbors, they're looking through, which it will be, a concrete drive, they start to see this outdoor learning space. So there's this softened edge from what they have currently out there. So we want you to be mindful of that as you look at this approach as well versus the other concept in it shortly.
Yeah.
Let me.
And so here, just highlighting what the grade levels would be on this first level. We have the special ed and the pre-K classrooms right behind administration, and while your kindergarten is just on the other side of the library. These little snippets kind of serve as inspiration on what those spaces could be. Those collaboration areas, that's an extension of the learning area. We also envision those, like I said, connected heavily to this outdoor area. So this image on the bottom is actually taken from inside, but a portion of that wall is opened up to where you can start to take advantage of that outdoor learning environment as an extension of that classroom. So just little inspiration. So these also serve as that too, heavily connected to what that could look like inside. We always think that learning takes place just as much outside as it is inside. I think also creating these little nooks to where why not kids can go read a book and feel comfortable in kind of those compressed spaces.
And that helps support the idea of learning on display, learning anytime, anywhere, really makes that open for opportunities.
And just that spark that, creating curiosity, how can we start to do that? Even here, we talk a lot about nature, but maybe that's something that starts to fold in graphics or even materiality. But again, how can we start to make connections out of just kids sitting in desks? Why not create some of these soft spaces to where kids can learn to discover on their own and learn off each other? Just another image of what those, what a classroom could look like, in terms of power and data, connection outside. But I think in all these, just that connection to get natural light is extremely important. We know how harsh it can be of us just sitting in a room without any connection outdoors. And so we want to make sure that we're taking advantage of that throughout all these spaces. And so that was the first level. So moving up to the second level, it is for the most part organization of your classrooms. And again, how do we start to connect to that library on the lower level? And so we do see that as double height volume. So where the cursor is there, you have visuals to that. It is open to below. We're looking at doing little bridges to where if I'm upstairs, I can look down and take part in what's happening. That's that curiosity, right? How do we start to spark imagination through what we're doing in this plan? One image, if you could click, Terry. And so with second floor, we're proposing having an outdoor learning environment. That's one of those things that doesn't need to be necessarily on the lower level. The image on the bottom right is actually on a second or third level, but it's nestled around walls, but getting that natural daylight. It is something that from all those grade levels up, why not do a science project out there? Let's go out to the outdoor learning level, learning lab on the second level and having that connection. So again, just how can we start to spark curiosity through some of these organizational moves in the plan? Just some imagery in terms of, again, how do we start to bring in branding? Maybe there's opportunity to get a local artist to help us start to frame and give a place for George Peabody. This is an image actually on a second level. You wouldn't know it looking at this, but again, how can that outdoor learning lab be something special for these kids? Even the classrooms that are adjacent to it, how do they start to connect to it? And so this is just zooming out. You can see both plans here in terms of the stacking and the organization of it. I'm going to pause here just to give time for thought and if there's any questions or comments before I go on to the next portion of the presentation.
What a great presentation. Thank everyone for joining us again. If you're joining us on the Zoom call, you certainly just raise your hand using the reactions button at the bottom, and you can be able to go off mute and ask your question directly, or you may choose to ask your question in the chat room. If you're joining us on Facebook, then please be sure to ask any questions and comments as comments on Facebook. And while we're waiting, we do have a couple of questions coming from Facebook. One person is asking, so there's no park for the kids. I'm assuming they mean outdoor play area.
Yeah, Christian, you want to speak to that?
I sure will. Yeah. So that whole front yard and then even down to Jefferson is the play area. So I can't remember the percentages, Terry or Alex, in terms of what's existing, but it is quite a bit more than what's there now.
Yeah, right now they're kind of limited to a hard play space and then some playground equipment that has a canopy on it. And so that play equipment with a canopy would be, I'll say, replicated. Having that kind of equipment will be on site, but also here, in addition to some hard play space, it will identify there will be green space, so you can actually have soft space to kick a ball around that you don't have currently. So we still need to define that, and that'll be part of what you'll see next time. But it'll be outdoor space for children, some sensory activity space probably, and that outdoor kind of amphitheater, if you will, to maybe as association with that stage. So good question, and we will need to include all of that as part of that.
Okay, great. We have questions coming through the chat as well. Can you go to the slide that shows the overall layout of that first floor for this question?
Sure. Okay. Bear with me here.
Okay, right.
Oops.
Don't you?
That was the second floor, I think.
Okay, yeah, to the first floor that shows the cafeteria.
Yes.
Right there, that's perfect. Okay, this question relates to that diagram, so you can help with this one. It says, where is the auditorium, conference room, custodian's room? I know some things we don't know in particular, but if you can kind of just walk through the idea for the auditorium, conference room, and a custodian's area.
All right, Christian, you want to start?
I think we'll have multiple probably points for custodial. I know the main custodial will be back on that kitchen part in terms of getting material for the school. So I think we'll have multiple points, even on the second level as well. So it's easily serviceable for the school. In terms of the auditorium or the gathering, that would happen in that dining spot. In terms of big numbers, it depends on, I guess, on the function of the space. You could hold some of that in the library if it's a more intimate presentation. So that's where, we're talking about dining. So we're looking at other ways of expanding outside of just eating. We really think that's a multi-purpose space. So that's where all your performances would happen as well.
So on there, if you can mark that I'm seeing on there, if you could kind of circle around with your mouse, I'm seeing with that arrow, the dining would actually be like a cafetorium, correct? With the stage area?
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. And one of the things we recognize with the school is your dining space is so small, so cramped. So the auditorium is a real necessity. And it's actually, because of the age of the school, it's one of a bonus that you don't see a lot with schools. And so an effective solution to make a space available throughout the day is making the cafetorium. So we got ample size. So you'll be able to get all kids in here within in 2 to 3 periods, really more how you want to handle it administratively, but then get lots of seating in there for those performance activities.
Okay, we have a Facebook question as a follow-up on that one, on how would seating work in the dining area as an auditorium?
Okay, one of the things that is included in the program is chair storage, so that those tables that would be used for dining could move back, chairs can move out, and create just rows of chairs, if you will, to create that auditorium kind of feel. So they would be, just several rows just going kind of back to the north to create that feel. Sometimes that's done with the actual tables can fold up to create benches that people can sit on. So that'll be part of the dialogue that we'll need to have. with the district on what's the right approach with furnishings to accommodate that.
Great. We have another question coming in. Can the drop-off zone be separate from the teacher parking area?
Christian, you want to start on that?
Yeah, I think it can, and maybe it's just how we look at the drives, because for the most part, OEDA is starting your stacking, and we want to definitely hit it in terms of kids exiting right there at that front door of the administration. So maybe it's just us reorienting or where that drive is, because that really is purely how we start to navigate kids and where they go. So there's not a mix of maybe staff with teachers and staff mixed up with drop off. So that's something we can study.
Yeah, and that's one of those design challenges because of the size of the campus. Right. This campus is less than a third of the size of a typical elementary campus. So ideally you want parking separate from loading and unloading. And there's so little space that's left over that it becomes such a premium for that front yard, if you will. It's going to be a conversation that we'll need to have as we move forward if we add another drive so that it separates those two. And if you see in this example, because there's so many, we have to have at least this number of parking. And so we can't put any parking on the street. It all has to be off the street. So if we start to add another drive, let's say, which would be ideal from a functional standpoint, you're going to start to eat into that front yard and that play space. So that's part of the dialogue that we'll want to have with Principal Rogers Hall about the priorities of those things. Otherwise, we think your drop off really is probably going to continue to be on the road, much like where you are now, that we think within this, your drop off is here, back and around. So we would see maybe that your staff lines along here to get the kids in and out quickly, and as they queue around the rest. And then this is really limited for if you're going to have to walk someone in, visitors and teachers, and for handicap access.
Yeah.
Okay.
So good question. That's something we definitely need to work on.
Yeah, that is a great question.
Okay,
and
we have
one of the things I didn't speak to, sorry, Jacqueline, is on the custodial, while there'll be custodial spaces throughout, we do see this area, this dock is an opportunity for central receiving, where I think right now you're really doing that through the front door. We think we can offer that within this space, and there's rooms identified to be able to accommodate that central receiving as a thought. So
okay,
sorry,
great.
Jack.
No problem. That leads right to our next question. You were right on point. Questions about storage areas. Where will storage areas, what would they look like? Kind of where would they be stationed, I guess, throughout the building?
All right. Christian,
yeah, I think they will be throughout. We're not just quite to that level just yet, but we will have adequate storage for the classrooms, for the neighborhoods, and for each supporting program, even for the gym. So we have those identified in the program, and so they'll be dispersed throughout each one of those spaces through the building.
And there's a book that the district has been working on, spending lots of time on, which is creating the ed specs. And so they describe how each of those spaces work. And so it'll speak to the storage. And so we'll be responding to that to identify the kind of storage that's going to go in the classrooms, the kind of storage that's going to support those academic wings, if you will. And so those classrooms, I'm sure, are going to be robust with storage and areas for manipulatives and that sort of thing that lots of time get left out.
Okay, another question about the location of the offices for the counselors and the CICs. Would those be located in the administration area on the second floor, or where would they be, or would there be multiple locations for counselors and CICs?
So my recollection was that there's going to be some downstairs and some upstairs. I can't recall if the counseling was separate or integrated. Do you recall, Christian, how that was handled?
I think it was upstairs counseling
Okay.
or a portion, so it is dispersed. We will have some of those administrative areas upstairs in a small portion.
Okay, great. Well, right now, this was option one. And again, if you're joining us on Facebook, please feel free to ask your questions as comments on our Facebook Live. If you're joining us in the live on the classroom, on the Zoom call, you can certainly ask your questions in the chat or raise your hand to go off mute and ask the question directly. We have one final question. I know you have another option to show, but for this particular option, the question is, are the classrooms bigger than the current classrooms?
Yes, they are. So you've got classrooms that are scheduled at 800 and 900 square feet, where typically I think the classrooms that you had, some were as low as 600 and something square feet and 700. The newer classrooms are certainly bigger. So these are going to have ample space, I think, to address the number of kids and just give room for all of the things and activities that go on within the space.
Fantastic. So I know you have another option, correct?
We do.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
Go ahead with option two.
These are great questions. We appreciate that. Just in terms of the site, we will have some fencing, and what we want to consider is that it's not a fence, right? It's something that's beautiful. It starts to intertwine with the beauty of what's around there. And so, like we alluded on the back where we have the service and where it's located, we want to be a good neighbor. And so screening that, whether that's through ornamental elements that create fencing and a visual barrier and coupled with landscape. So these are just some ideas that we're going to work through. So we're not looking at dumpsters, right? We're conscious of that, and we want to do a good job designing that.
This is a community space. As you've directed us, this wants to be a community space.
That's right. And we do have slope, as in our earlier graphics, we have about 18 feet of slope. But we think, where the cafeteria and the music and art, there's opportunities there. This is an image of a site that's sloping. So that can be something that's playful, right? If you had a big slope in your yard, I could see myself rolling down that at my age. I would love to have that opportunity.
We'll hold you to it, Christian.
I'm there. We have 2 stories worth of space, and I said it earlier, how do we start to create curiosity? This is just an example of what that could look like, that library. You can imagine on the upper level, just looking down and experiencing that natural light in your living room space. So just some inspirational images to help us kind of form some of these bubbles that you're looking at. We talk a lot about connection to daylight and views. And so we're starting to look at that. How can we start to get daylight into the core of that space? So the library roof is going to be pitched up, and we're going to get natural light spilling from the north and the south. How about those classrooms that are adjacent? Why not pull away and get natural light through the roof? So those are all kind of those characteristics that I think help create home, that quality of warmth that you guys have voiced to us. So we want to make sure we're exploring that. And then this final image is just really breathing life into those building massing that you saw. It's a very rough sketch, but it starts to break down what the building could look like. We talk a lot about connection to the outdoors, so lots of transparency, what that stage could look like in terms of connection and engagement to the community. So this is starting to show what that could look like for an outdoor performance. A porch on the end of that dining and auditorium space. How can we start to engage outside of site and looking at those great views that you have on the site? And again, looking at the approach, creating a porch at your front door as well. And so just some inspirational views on what that might look like, again, architecturally.
So what we'd like to do now is thank you for the questions that you sent us in the chat. And what we'd like to do now is just to review some of the concepts in summary and just get your reaction to the design. We appreciate you asking kind of clarifying questions. Now we would like to hear back from you of what's your reactions to what you see. So we talked about that service drive from Owita Street to serve that along that front edge. We talked, there are retaining walls that are going to be required on both the north and the east side. Both of these options have a different amount of retaining walls that are going to be required just because of the elevation change that's happening. Those neighbors to the north, they will be seeing to the building like they are currently, but there will be that service drive that'll be centered on the site that we want to be thoughtful about. The parking encroaches on the outside play. We also talked about, where students would load and unload. The front yard is a communal space, so more of this kind of public focused space. The idea of play and performance, with that idea of that stage and activities that could go on out there. The library views and connections to the outdoors that I think you saw in that kind of conceptual sketch, that connection to outdoors as well. Great views to the northwest, taking advantage of that prominence of the land, and then that natural light throughout. So those are several things that we've identified as kind of highlights. And so we would like to hear from you. And so feel free to unmute if they're okay, Jacqueline, to do that and
Yes.
have some dialogue with us. We'd appreciate your feedback.
Okay, we do have several things coming through. One in the chat is Ms. Dillard said that she loves the location of the library and she likes the idea of having it as a 2-story building. We have a lot of things coming through on Facebook. You've gotten a lot of love, likes, and warm hugs coming through reactions on Facebook. Again, they had questions about a traditional playground area. It was a common question coming through on Facebook. And they want more about the drop off and pickup. Those are 2 of the major concerns that are coming through on Facebook right now. Also, one question is a great one. Thank you, Ms. Amaya. Thank you, Amaya. Will there be an elevator for when kids that gets hurt or they have wheelchairs or have other needs on the other floors that connects the first and second floor?
There sure will.
Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we'll speak more about the drives. I think we can follow up on that as we go into the second option. We'll follow up more about those drives. And I'll tell you, typically, and what cities prefer, school districts, just maintenance on the site of traffic. Ideally, you want to put take as much of that traffic off the streets and put them onto the school site with lots of loading and stacking. And but unfortunately, with this campus is so small, you're going to have to take advantage of the roads like you currently do, just so that there's that space remaining for both academics as well as play. And so that, again, that'll be part of the conversation we'll need to have about kind of prioritization of what goes on site versus used by the surrounding streets.
Okay. Ms. Gomez, did you had your hand raised to make a comment? Okay.
No, I am sorry.
Okay, no problem. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, so
Anything else?
I think
That's
we're
it?
pretty good to move this one.
All right. We'll take those hugs and move on.
Yes.
Okay. All right, Christian.
So the next option we're calling porch. I think you'll see why here shortly. Terry, if you can move forward. So I'm not gonna go through the last series. It's very much the same. Phase 1 is going to be the same for this option as well. only because of what we have to get into phase one. So the organization is very much the same. The difference is where the location of phase two is. That's your art, your music, the cafetorium, and then the kitchen and the service. So in this option, it pulls it to Radel, and we're canning it to allow us a little bit more drive in the front. And so those communal spaces, I'm just calling the porch. It's right there. It's pulling all those community spaces right in the front of the school. And so that's the kind of high level organization of this scheme. Your front entry or your administration is very similar to the last. Obviously, it looks different. It feels different. Your classrooms are organized the same. Your library is still the heart of the school, but it starts to pull the specials, those special programs, the art and the music, the fine arts aspect, and the visual arts right there as a part of this kind of entry sequence. We think there's opportunity to display those somehow, whether if it's visual for a parent or showcasing artwork. So those are located right there in the front. And again, your cafeteria is right there. A little different in terms of service. It is anchored on the far west of this drive. So, in terms of that parking lot, you would have service vehicles accessing this on the end of that bar. And so that is a little different from the last scheme.
And then the yellow bar here, you'll see that becomes the stage, correct? So that room gets turned a little bit, and then these access to views start to change. So it's more about kind of the space in the play, as opposed to that kind of that view out. Still capturing that, and we'll see that in as much as we can.
Yep, your front yard now becomes your backyard. And so as Terry mentioned, the stage, is similar in spot, but you don't have a connection to the outdoors. It's all internal. If I'm just going from parking to entry, you could see the music and the arts located right off of that. Art is located to where it can take advantage of that outdoor connection, have an art patio, in that edge. We still have maintained a strong connection for the library outdoors. In this scheme, you have a direct access to outdoors from your gym and your play on that edge. And as Terry mentioned, the views out from the dining get a little constrained. We don't have those direct views that we did in the last option. It's concealed mostly by kitchen and service. We get a little corner, so we tried to pull out as much as we could the cafeteria to take advantage of that slope and those views on that edge. Similar organization, no different there in terms of the academics and the lay of the neighborhood. These images are a little different in terms of what those could be as well. Furniture is going to be a huge aspect of this when we talk about flexibility, being able to get kids in groups, no different than centers for a kindergarten classroom, should be similar for these collaboration areas. And just being conscious of these are little kids, so creating scale, and being creative on how we do that. Why not have a lower window for kids to be able to work and look outside? Again, opportunities for connection, whether I'm a teacher helping a student out or student to student at the older grade levels. But how can we start to pull in this tie to nature as well, graphically?
Yeah, bringing opportunities for community in as well to help.
Yeah. Here's that image just blowing up again. This wall behind these kids can collapse to be a classroom, or it can erode away to extend the learning environment outside. Just another example of that at a bigger scale. So in terms of the second level, again, the phase one is the same, but here you can start to see, the dining is open to below. So that's a 2-story volume. And, it's just some precedent images on what that central spine of the library could look like looking down. Overall organization. And then again, just a rough sketch, just to breathe a little bit of life into those bubble diagrams on what this could look like. That it could be perceived in those massing that front 1.5 story volume could be very abrupt if you think about that massing, but we want to find ways to soften that and peel back that facade where that cafeteria is in that entry, again, to create a porch. So it's a little bit, bring some warmth to it, bring some scale. It's not intimidating. So how we start to design that front elevation is going to be extremely important for us. And some other views on tie to nature. This might be, if you could imagine the library connecting to that little area between the wings, what that might look like. Landscape is going to be extremely important. I think it starts to create some nice places, but again, how do we start to spark imagination for these kids? And so I think that can happen just as much outside as it could inside. Thinking about signage and wayfinding, whether that's exterior or interior, being a little mindful of that. So bold, it could be bold in terms of, wayfinding. I think it needs to be when you talk about a lot of parents engaging in this. So just creating simple moves in terms of navigating the site.
So some of the highlights that we wanted to just to raise to you is that that building massing that we talked about that was on OIDA on the first option, that on this option on the porch, it's moving all of that to the front, that creating that porch feel. Again, the service, what's different about the first option, we had the service, if you will, on the back side or north side of the building. Here, the service is on the front or entry side of the building. And so how that gets addressed so that that's something that's aesthetically pleasing is going to be important that we work through. There will be some reduced views to the northwest, but then some a different focus is moving that focus to the play area itself. Art as an entry feature, both art, potential art and music as entry features could be something that's very attractive to help connect the community to that right as they enter the front door. Again, that's that learning on display, community porch for community use, and then kind of softening that entry facade. In this option, you have the gym directly adjacent to the play field, where in the other option, you had to go down the hall a little bit, to go outside. The residential neighbors to the north can benefit more from the green space as opposed to that building facade. And then we'll just be thoughtful about that elevation change of that play space up that's elevated, just how we can deal with that and start to soften that as it comes down the hill towards those housing to the north. And then that angled front parking lot allows for more tree and green space because we've opened that corner up. So love to get your feedback on this option. And then the next thing we'll do is we'll compare the two, compare and contrast with your feedback. But if we could just get any feedback you might have on this particular option.
Once again, if you join us on Facebook, please feel free to share any comments and concerns and questions as comments on there. We are monitoring the Facebook Live, so we can share those and get those answered immediately. If you're on the Zoom call, please just raise your hand and you can go off mute and make your comments. Now, while we're doing this, because we have this answer from question from Facebook, what is the time frame? When do you look at all this getting started?
So, so don't hold me to this because we're still kind of working it through, but approximately drawings will be finished in the summer, and then bids will take place soon after that, so that by the end of 2022, because of the permitting process, you've got to go through that sort of thing. We think it will be probably the end of 2022 when construction of phase 1 starts. So you'll need about, or let's say a little under 12 months, around 12 months to do that first phase. And then you'll need a few months to then to demo the existing building, build the new improvements of the cafeteria, and then all of the site work, playgrounds, and that sort of thing, which would get us to about the August of 2024 opening.
Okay, we're having a debate in the chat. One person says they love the Hearth option with exclamation point. We have another person in the chat that said, I feel like having the play area in the back of the school would be safer than having it in the front of the school. I really love how everything looks so organic and welcoming. And then someone says, wait a minute, I like the porch too. So.
Okay, good. Good dialogue. And then, was there another question? Do we have another question?
It was a comment.
Okay, how would the cafeteria, do we have this? I don't know if we have the answer yet for this, but the question becomes from Facebook, how would the cafeteria work during phase 1? I think you had mentioned that earlier in one of the things,
Yes.
but I'm not sure if you have a definitive answer for that.
Yeah, and if, so I had my assumptions about that. One of the things as we talked with Principal Rogers Hall about how to work through that is that they felt that to be able to keep the kids on campus, that they would provide, if you will, more a catered type lunches. So rather than a dining room with a full kitchen, it would be meals that would be prepared and brought over and then served kind of as catering style. And Principal Rogers Hall, if there's anything to add or clarify or correct on that, feel free to do that.
Okay, thank you. The only thing I would add is just by saying that it's really important for us to be able to keep our kids on the campus during construction. That's, I think, going to be a better option. And so with that being said, I do think that we can work through lunch during construction of the new building.
Great. Okay, we have another question here. I love the Hearth. Ms. Gomez says, I love the Hearth option as well. I was wondering if there could be an extended drop-off pickup zone or curb.
Okay, let me go back to a site plan. That'll work. So could there be extended?
Hearth.
Oh, on the Hearth. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Hopefully everybody didn't get sick watching this. If I get out of it, who knows what'll happen.
Best stay in it.
All right, we're getting close. Bear with me. So let's use this. So the Christian, you want to take that question?
Extending the drop off. That was the question.
Extended drop off pickup and curb pickup as well.
Yeah, I think that's something we'll just need to continue to explore. You know, if it's on street parking or not parking, but drop off and unloading, I think as Terry mentioned, we're going to try to get as much of that on site. Mm-hmm. So that's just something we're going to need to work with on the city and trying to help sculpt that. But I think we're hearing it quite a bit. How much of that can we get and get more of it? Because we know with especially the littles, a lot of the parents are going to park to walk their kids in. So we don't want that creating traffic jams once you are using, areas of stacking for unloading and loading. So that's something we're just going to have to work with in detail.
Okay, great. Does anyone else have any questions or preferences regarding the hearth versus the porch? Options, any comments? Is there anything that you like that you prefer in one that you're not seeing in the other? We know we've heard about the playground area, we've heard about the drop off and pickup. Is there something perhaps that you like in the hearth plan that you would like to be incorporated in the porch, or vice versa? Oh, here's a great question. The question is, do you think that it's possible to create a parking lot for visitors and parents across the street from the school?
So one of the assumptions that we've made, of course, it ultimately depends on the continued relationship with, I think it's the Church of Christ next door, is there's a parking lot on the southwest corner across the street. And so I think if they continue to have that use, we would pretty much double the amount of parking with the parking we have added on site versus the existing parking that will provide a lot more opportunity for students and community, for parents and teachers to use. Anything to add to that, Kristen?
No.
Okay, so here's a question from Facebook. First, they prefer the porch plan, and they're wanting to know, how will the hill affect the porch plan?
Christian, you want to take that?
That's a good question. So in our comments here, in that scheme, we're going to have additional retaining walls on that edge because there is an 18-foot drop in sight there. There's only so far we can get that building floor to meet that. So we're going to be up in the air a little bit. In this sketch, you can see, sorry, Terry.
Sorry about that. Okay.
You're right. You can see on edge, there's, some drop off there. So that wall, that retaining wall, just looking at a number, it's probably, 14 feet or so that we'll be seeing on that corner. So that is how we're able to, get that, because we got to get trucks into that service. We still need to get kids down from academics to Cafetorium. So there's only so much we can start to deviate from the floor plan as you move from the east to the west.
Okay, there was another question about the parking lot across the street from the school. Could you expand upon that a little bit more?
Yeah, and let me see. I'm going to go ahead and go out of this just because I think it'll give us a better kind of view of what's going on.
13's a good image. Well, or that one, yeah.
Okay, so right now, there is the only parking that's at the site now is this parking lot that's owned by this church. And the church allows the district to use that during the week, and then they use it for church services on Sunday and at night. So we would propose, so the hope would be is that relationship would continue so that those 45 parking spaces almost will get doubled with the addition of our parking spaces that we were showing in both of our options.
Okay,
does
great.
Does that answer that? If I need any more kind of response, please let me know.
And then that parking could either be designated, right now it's designated for staff parking. It can either be used for staff or visitors, or however the school then designates to use that particular space.
Absolutely, right. Yep,
okay,
fully administrative of how to handle that.
Okay, great. So I know we're like at 7:14, so we have about 15 minutes left in the meeting. I don't know if there's some other things that you want to go ahead and present to get additional feedback or direct comparison.
Oh, not that far. Yeah, I got ahead of myself here.
Oh, don't get ahead of yourself.
We have a opportunity here. I'm going to go ahead and try to share that again. So it's the same QR code you had. So if you still are live, what we'd like you to do is to just give your feedback. So of those two options, which is your preference? And I think, do I need to open the poll? Okay, poll is open. I went too far. I think I went too far. Okay, let me try that again. All right, here we go. And I'm going to enter. Okay, now the poll should be open. Press and enter. Sorry. Now the poll's open. One of the comments that I just saw was about the storm shelter. So as you guys are responding to the poll, the storm shelter will be a part of phase 1, and it'll be part of the gym. It's intended to be sized for the entire occupancy of the building. So it'll have great multiple use if necessary, but will not take away from the attractiveness of that gym.
Okay, we do have a question about the porch option. They said it appears to be more parking spaces on the porch option on the Hearth. Is that true, or is that just an illusion?
I think we may have shown more, but the number required will be the same for both. So I believe we probably are going to end up needing to add more parking under that option 1.
Okay,
And it may be that just the geometry of the solution for the porch, because of services on that back end corner of the site, would allow for additional parking spots just naturally. But
it's a good point.
The city's going to have the same amount of parking, but
Okay.
the porch option would have a longer drive.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Any other questions while we wait on the poll?
Not yet. We do have a couple of people on Facebook saying they prefer the porch.
All right, got some porch. All right, shall I go ahead and do one? See what we're closing the poll.
Here we got 2 for Hearth.
Oh.
3 votes.
Say that one more time.
There are 3 votes. There are 2 for Hearth and 1 for porch.
Oh, so with 3 votes were done this way. Okay. All right. So if you, if anyone else wants to add, so we only had probably a few people that were able to connect with the app. So feel free to add your vote into the chat, if you will. That'll be another option for us to get some more feedback.
And on Facebook, we have about 3 more votes for porch.
All right. Porch is sounding pretty positive, pretty solid. All right, let's see. Oh, got another Hearth. Okay, that's good. And so this will be good information, because I think as we go, please continue to respond. But what we'll do is we'll go ahead and talk about those next steps. And so we're going to take this. Go ahead.
We have a couple more hearts just popped in with exclamation points on Facebook. 3 hearts with exclamation point. So 4, we're trending here. On Facebook, they're coming strong for Hearth.
Okay, we got a good race going.
Got a good race going here. And again, if you're joining us on Facebook, or if you're on the meeting itself, and you know someone who was unable to join tonight's meeting, the meeting is being recorded and will be posted to www.dallasisd.org/bond2020 meetings. There's also a form there where you can submit your questions and comments, or you can just put your vote out there to say porch or Hearth, and we'll let the design team know. But right now on Facebook, guys, they are battling it out between porch and Hearth, and everyone's giving exclamation points for both of their choices.
Okay. The more exclamation, the more you vote counts, right? So. Well, good. Well, so So next steps is we are going to be taking this information back to have conversations with the district, with Principal Rogers Hall, and these options, and ultimately they're going to be cost estimates done. There's going to be meetings with the city to determine, kind of opportunity and challenges that'll go along with that. And so we're going to be seriously considering all the input that you have. And we thank you for all that today, because that's really helpful. And thank you, Mrs. Bell, for recording that so that we can follow up on that.
Definitely.
We will this is not the last time we're going to meet. We're going to be developing our design. And so right now we're in, if you will, we're in pre-design, early design, conceptual design is where we are now. We're going to be developing this solution through schematic design is what it's called. And then finally design development, which is kind of that final piece of completing that design work before we start producing these construction documents. And so at the end of that design development phase, once we have a good design solution with images, with graphics, with renderings, we're going to be coming back and meeting with all of you again to get your feedback on that. So we want to thank you for all the input so far. That's going to certainly provide valuable insight into the direction going forward. And we look forward to coming back to you at the end of that design development phase to get your reaction. So thank you again.
Thank you so much for your designs. And again, if you join us tonight, and if you joined us tonight either via Facebook or on the Zoom meeting, we are very pleased to have your input. We know and recognize at Dallas ISD that the community voice is vitally important as we design our new campuses to serve not just students today, but to big thoughts, bold, innovative, and generational, so we can continue to serve our scholars well into the future. With that being said, we want to turn it back over to Mr. Alfred, Deputy Chief Alfred, for closing remarks.
Yeah, thank you, Jackie, and thank you, Terry, and your team, and Christian. I think great designs, great solutions. Community, Peabody, you can't go wrong with either option, Porch or Hearth. But as Terry mentioned, they're going to be working with us to kind of finalize and develop some of our interior spaces. And I'm going to ask Ms. Rogers Hall if she could help us form probably a small committee that we can bounce off some of these ideas and help us develop some of these academic areas as well. As Terry also mentioned, the design development phase, I'm hoping we could get to that phase November, December-ish, so we could get back with this larger group and kind of show them these new images, whether Hearth or Porch. But like I said, next steps, a lot of individual meetings with the academic group, with Mrs. Roger Hall's committees, and then coming back to this larger group, probably closer toward the end of the year, November, December. So anyway, it was great feedback. I'm excited, about our choices, and I'll turn it back over to you, Ms. Bell.
Fantastic. And again, thank you, community. Thank you, design team, for this wonderful presentation this evening. We remind you that you can keep track of this and other Bond 2020 projects at our Bond website at www.dallasisd.org/Bond 2020. Go ahead and bookmark that site so you can visit back often. That's where you can find information about this and other projects, all the way from pre-design through design, through bid, through construction, all the way up to and including the opening of the new George Peabody Elementary School. That's your hub and your information where you can find everything you need to know about these particular projects. With that being said, we want to turn it back over to our principal, Principal Rogers Hall, for closing remarks for tonight's meeting. And there we go. Principal Rogers Hall.
Yes, I am just so super excited. And I feel like the design team really heard our requests initially when we talked about natural light and when we talked about making sure that the kids are having the opportunity to become one with nature, so to speak. So I really do appreciate the work that's already been done, and I'm looking forward to finalizing some plans. So thank you.
And on behalf Mackey. Trustee Mackey had to leave the meeting early to attend another meeting, but he did want to express his gratitude to the design team and most importantly to the community and the staff for George Peabody for your participation in tonight's meeting. Again, we recognize and honor the fact that the community's voice is vital as we design new academic facilities for not just today, but for the future. Again, the website where you can keep track of everything is www.dallasisd.org/bond2020. And with that being said, we want to thank you for your time this evening and have a wonderful good night.